Fortune tellers in New Orleans are legit, or at least some of them are, according to a woman named Jennifer who shared her story for Spooky Scary Storytime. And she said she was in New Orleans on a trip. She was walking in front of St. Louis Cathedral when she comes across this fortune teller. And something in her was just like, just do it. Because at this point in her life, she was going through it. Up until 2018, she had lived a very charmed life. She was married with 4 beautiful children. Her husband was like the ideal partner, always respectful, always like, how can I serve you? What can I do for you? Until this one day he comes home and he says, I'm leaving you. He apparently was having an affair with this girl from work, so marriage, poof, over. Then comes her cancer diagnosis. She said it was out of nowhere. She'd always been very healthy. Then her best friend passes away out of nowhere. She said it was like her entire life was going up in flames at the same time, and after she would recover from one thing, another thing would come crashing down. And she said she was really depressed. Nobody really knew it, but at the time she comes across this fortune teller, she was debating taking her own life. She truly felt like somebody had it out for her and that she would just never overcome this string of bad luck. She said, I also knew inherently that whatever was going on was spiritual. So anyway, I go up to this fortune teller and I, just say, what do you got for me? And in full detail, she starts describing the affair. She starts describing Jennifer's cancer diagnosis. She starts describing her best friend's death. Fortune teller says, I can see that you're going through a period of deep loss and despair. Are you considering taking your own life in your bathroom? And she starts describing Jennifer's bathroom in great detail. Jennifer's like, I cannot believe that you know all of this. What can I do? And the fortune teller looks at her up and down, and then she starts describing a woman to Jennifer. And she's like, do you know a woman who's this and this and this? And she starts describing her aunt in great detail. The description was very specific down to the name. So she says, yeah, what about my aunt? She said, well, this woman's always been very jealous of you, and she's actually been having spell work done on you because she doesn't want you to have a happy and fulfilling life. Do you want to undo the spell work? And Jennifer's like, of course, yeah. After she meets with the fortune teller, she calls her aunt's daughter, her cousin, and she's like, hey, how does your mom feel about me? Do you know anything about how your mom feels about me? And her cousin's like, yeah, it's kind of awkward for me to tell you this, but she's never really liked you. She's always kind of been just jealous, of you. I get that sense. Her cousin kind of hesitates. Jennifer doesn't say anything else. Her cousin's like, I should probably tell you, I don't really believe in this stuff, but my mom goes to this lady who does spell work. Jennifer says it was just this wild string of events and coincidence, if you can call it that this fortune teller tells her this one thing and then she finds out this other information from her cousin. But after that, she said all of her bad luck seemed to stop. Her luck seemed to turn around and she started having a good time and good things started happening to her. But her aunt, on the other hand, started having a string of bad luck. Her aunt's son suddenly passes away, even though he's in his early 20s. And then right after that, her house burns down. So she says, I don't know if the fortune teller that I met with did something. I don't know if this was her karmic bad luck from what she was trying to do to me. But either way, she said, I'm really, really grateful that I ran into that woman that day because my life changed from that point forward. And I feel like she sort of saved my life in a roundabout way. She says, I don't know exactly what my aunt was into, but I know that it wasn't good. If you have a story you think nobody else would believe, please feel free to send it in. We would love to hear it. I try to post a new story almost every single night.
So I have a spooky story for you, except this one's unique because it comes from you guys, the viewers. Now, like all of my viewer tales, I have one rule and one rule only. Please keep it cute in my comments because these are somebody's lived experiences. Now, of course, I've been given permission to share this story, and as usual, I will keep the submitter anonymous. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, this spooky story takes us back to Hawaii, and it starts off like this. The townhouse I lived in was more of a condo. I had a main floor with 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and then a loft upstairs that overlooked the living room. There was a single level apartment below me, and I was told that somebody lived there, but I never saw anyone enter or leave that place and never heard anything or anyone in it. There were 3 things that led me to believe that this place was haunted. The first was the second bedroom. Regardless of the time of year or time of day it was, this room was always cold. Not like a slight difference either, but a noticeable difference. As soon as you stepped through the doorway, it was easily 5 degrees colder in that room than the rest of the place. Not a big flag, but wait, the second thing was, I had a cat, and random times during the night, it would just stop and stare up at the loft area from the living room. Not just look, but stare 10 to 29 minutes at a time. Okay, weird cat, cold temps, whatever. But the third thing, and this is the one that had me counting down my days until I moved out. My first 2 years there, I was on a swing shift, 1 p.m. to 9 p.m., and then a mid shift, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. But my last year, I was on a straight day shift, 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., so it was a normal sleeping pattern. I was more aware of something that would occur at night. And every night, after 10 p.m., the front door handle would rattle. The first few times, I didn't think much of it, and then it got strange to me. We had a night security guard in the community, and I started wondering if it was him, but why? So then I started running to the door when I would hear it, and I would look out and see nothing, thinking the guard must be a creeper or something. And one night, I just waited by the door, and yeah, there was a doorknob jiggle. I could see out the little window right next to the door, but no one was there. It had just been moving on its own. But I want to know what you guys are thinking. I did follow up with this creator. He did send me the address. To me, the condo looks kind of new or new-ish, but I am somebody who believes that land carries the stories that buildings don't. And so it's very possible that whatever is in this place, if there's anything at all, might be attached to the land. And recently I've been getting a lot of stories where the land appears to be haunted, and to me that's really fascinating but equally terrifying, because you can't avoid the land, you kind of need it to live on. So again, it's just really odd. But I want to know what you guys are thinking in the comments. Do you think this condo is haunted? If so, do you guys think there's something inside of it? Do you think there's something a part of the land, or do you think it was something that someone bought with them? As I'm reading the story, our submitter doesn't express any sort of fear, more like, as I like to call them, what the fuckisms, where things are just odd and there's no explanation for them. So I do wonder if the activity could be worse, but because he wasn't as afraid of it as I would probably be, maybe it wasn't. But drop your thoughts in the comments, let me know what you guys are thinking, and I'll see you guys in my next video.
We listen, we don't get scared, and we don't judge. Let me tell you guys a story time of this friend of mine who had a shadow that was living in her house. Like, whenever there was no electricity, you could see the shadow clearly, but even during the day, you were able to see the shadow, but not as much. So, me and this girl were like in the same transport, different high schools, right? Sharp, we're in the transport, we're talking, whatever, and she tells me that at her house there is a shadow that moves on the walls. Sometimes you see it on the floor, sometimes you see it on the ceiling. And I was like, obviously. I was like, girl, you're lying. She's like, you should come to my house, you're gonna see. And I'm like, if there's a shadow at your house, like, how are you guys living there? And she's like, you know what, we've all gotten used to it. This one time I decide I'm gonna go visit her. So I tell my mom that this particular Friday I'm not gonna come back home straight. I'm gonna get off at my friend's house. And my mom was like, okay. She told my transport driver, because my friend's mom was gonna take me back home after we see this shadow that she's talking about. So we get to her house, her mom makes us food, you know, she talks to us, asks us how was school, blah blah blah. She's like, she wants to go to her friend because she wants to give us like a little bit of space so that we can just have fun together, and then we should go, if she's not back by the time that I want to go home and I need to leave, we should go and fetch her. Shut, no problem. So we got back home, we got back to my friend's house early, and there was no one in the house. Her mom had already left. So she says, let me go look for this shadow, and then if I find it in any room, I'm going to call you. I'm like, chilled. When I tell you, she goes into the bathroom, she looks around, she doesn't find it, she goes to her mom's bedroom, she goes into her bedroom, and she's like, come and see it. When I tell you, there was a shadow on the wall. Obviously, when the sun reflects on you, you have a shadow, right? So there was no person, but there was a shadow. You could tell that it was low-key a boy because it didn't have hair. I don't know. And I was like, Mogel, what the hell? It started moving. And she's like, you see, I told you. And I'm like, so you're not scared? She's like, no, it doesn't speak. It doesn't do anything. All it does is just move around the house. So I'm looking at her room, trying to see like, where is the, like, where are the people that are going to pop up and be like, it's a joke? I'm like, you're lying. She's like, go touch the wall. Like, you can feel the wall, but it's there. Like, when you put your hand on the wall, the shadow comes on your hand. And I was like, did I not want to leave and go home same time? So I asked this girl, like, why is there a shadow in your house? She's like, that is her older brother. Older brother died, an unfortunate, like a very sudden death. And when he died, somebody was using his spirit for evil. And this person that this traditional healer told them, like, hey, we can go get their spirit, whatever, this is what you need to do. Can't this person told them that you can go get the man from, you can bring back his spirit. Unfortunately for them, they said, we're going to put his spirit in a bottle. That particular bottle, you're going to take that particular bottle and you have to take it to his grave. That's where you're going to break the bottle after doing certain things. Yeah, they took the bottle, they did what the person did. They actually they low-key didn't believe this traditional healer that the person is somewhere, whatever, but they did. When they did, they took it to the graveyard and they broke the bottle there. Sana, when I tell you, she says that they broke the bottle there, and when they got home, there was a shadow there. This traditional healer kept on telling them, no, it's the boy, like he's not rested, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And they kept on spending money on this person, and the shadow was not going anywhere. So they eventually went to another person to seek help, and this person told them that their child is resting resting peacefully, and there was no way where this child was being used. This traditional healer was trying to get money out of y'all, and whatever shadow that you're seeing is this person's animal. Like, it's not a person, it's an animal, but it looks like a human being. Unfortunately for them, this traditional healer gave them a spirit of an animal or whatever the hell that shadow was, and that particular traditional healer can't take it, like, he can't remove it himself. That's why the shadow is still there, because if that traditional healer knew how to throw this particular animal at people and take their money and also take it back, they were going that shadow was not going to be there anymore. So she's like, they basically have learned to live with it. When they find people that advise them on what to do, they try, and if it doesn't work, it is what it is. And I was just like, girl, I don't know, y'all. It was scary, man, because at first I thought she was playing with me, like there was something that she was using, and it actually moved to the other room. And when I got to the parents' house, it was just standing there, and I'm like, yo, I chilled with her, honestly, even though I was a little terrified. And she just told me, like, you'll eventually get used to it. Take it as it's not real, and you will not get scared. When you see it, just move your eyes. It's not gonna do anything. It actually is what it is. And yeah, man, her mom took me home, and that was that, hey? That was that. I also learned to live with it. So every single time I'd go to this girl's house and I see this shadow, I just, and you can't take a picture of it, because when you take a picture of it, there's nothing on the camera. So now you know it's real.
Let's read another scary and true story. My wife stepped on something in the lake. The next day, they found a body. A few years ago, when my daughter was a toddler, my wife and I used to take her to the nearby lake to picnic, swim, and just unwind. It was a peaceful spot. Quiet, not too crowded, the kind of place where you could easily forget about the world for a while. One afternoon, after we finished eating, my wife decided to go for a quick swim while I stayed on the beach with our daughter. I watched her wade out into the water, the sun sparkling off the surface. A minute later, she suddenly stopped and turned to me, shouting something. At first, I couldn't make out what she said, but her expression was off. Then I heard her clearly. I think I just stepped on someone's face. I froze for a second, thinking maybe she was joking. But the look on her face wasn't playful. It was pale, almost terrified. She quickly started making her way back to the shore, her legs moving faster, like she couldn't get out of the water fast enough. When she got back to me, she was visibly shaken. She said that while she was swimming, her foot brushed against something soft, and at first, she thought it was a rock or a weird patch of seaweed. When she pressed her foot down, she felt the unmistakable shape of a face beneath the water, a nose, an eye socket. She swore she felt the hollow of the eye. I considered going in to check it out, but something stopped me. The unease in my gut, maybe. We decided to pack up and leave right after that. The next day, the local news reported that a young boy who had been missing for days was found drowned in that same lake not far from where we had been. He'd been there the whole time, just beneath the surface. To this day, my wife is convinced she stepped on his face. And let's read some of the comments here, because I think some people have similar experiences. The top comment on the thread is from the original poster, and he said, "This was the year 2000, which was a while ago. Yeah, she's fine, but I don't think she would have been fine if she had reached down or I had found the body and pulled it up or something. It's a small lake, almost a pond. The police said the body was not found where we were, which was at the public swimming area. We think they were either lying to avoid alarming the public or the body drifted. In hindsight, obviously we should have reported. We were young and silly and allowed denial to creep in on the way home. That all went away with the news story." And then somebody also commented with a similar experience here. They said, "My uncle and two of his friends drowned on New Year's Eve. The bodies were never recovered. It was a deeper gorge of a river, and I guess many are not found. 13 years later, my papa spread my step-grandma's ashes in the same place my uncle drowned and told her to go find them. 2-3 weeks later, they called my papa, telling him that they recovered all 3 bodies, and you could verify by face and identification in wallets, but DNA had been done and it was them. The boat capsized and all 3 men were under the boat, down around 140 feet. With the freezing temps and lack of oxygen, plus the boat covering the 3 bodies, it basically preserved them. It really is creepy to think about all the others down there and elsewhere in similar situations, as I know my uncle and the 2 he was with were far from the only ones who had drowned and have never been recovered in that specific area, and I know it happens everywhere. It makes swimming in lakes, rivers, gorges, etc. a bit freaky to me for sure." When I was 8 or 9, I was in the ocean with a couple of my family members. It was about 7 of us, I think. And we were out to
our chest, I would say, and simultaneously all of us felt something like brush up against our feet. And we all swore that it was something similar to skin, because obviously when it's like sharks and fish, it's like slimy almost. But I remember even my mom was like, we have to go report this because we think there might be a body in the ocean. We ended up having to get out, and we told the lifeguard, and everyone got out of the water, and eventually they couldn't find anything, and they chalked it up to being a shark. But sometimes I'm like, what if it wasn't? Especially in an ocean, there's no way of really telling. Somebody else responded to this thread and said, my cousin was surfing on a beach in Brazil, and all of a sudden he felt something heavy against his body when he was in the water. It was a human body in decomposition, no eyes, no nose, and teeth all showing because the lips were gone. Absolutely terrifying. And then I'll read one last comment here. This person said, when I was a kid, we used to go out in our boat and go tubing. It was my favorite. One day I freaked out and refused to get in the water, saying I felt like a dead body was in there and it was going to touch me. My parents thought I was ridiculous, but didn't push, and we puttered off to our favorite little cove to grill. We got home a few hours later and it was all over the news. A body had surfaced in the same area we had been when they were trying to get me in the tube not long after we left. Maybe a coincidence, but I stopped swimming in lakes after that. I'll never forget that feeling of knowing someone was dead and floating around right beneath me. Oh my gosh. That is so unsettling, and I don't know if I'll ever go into a lake or a body of water ever again. If you guys have any other stories that you want me to read, please feel free to comment or message me your own story, and I will see you in the next one.
I caught something on my trail cam. It's trying to pretend it's a cat. I set up the trail cams after something got into my chicken coop. It wasn't a fox or a coyote. They leave messes. Bloody ones. Let me tell you, I've cleaned up more than a few of those over the years. This one was precise. The wire was clipped, the latch was open, and 4 of my best layers were gone without a trace. I live out here alone. I had no one to back me up when I told the story, but I know what I saw, or rather, what I didn't see, and I didn't see a damn coyote. You sure about that? Hayes asked down at the general store. I know what a mess they make. Someone definitely stole them. Who's out here stealing your hens, Carrie? I don't know. I slapped my money down on the counter. That's the point of the cameras. I'm going to see who took them. Hayes looks amused. Do you think that chicken thieves are going to come back round for a second time? Yeah. And if they don't, just give me the damn cameras. And up they went. The first few nights, I caught the usual critters, raccoons scuttling through the underbrush, a few deer passing through, even a bobcat slinking along the tree line. Aww. But they didn't clip the wire and cleanly steal my hens, so I left them be. It was 5 nights before something else came onto the screen. At first, I thought it was a mountain lion. Big, sleek, moving low to the ground with purpose. It padded right through the frame of my western-facing cam at 2:47 a.m. But something about it was off. The legs were too long. The way the skin bunched around the joints looked unnatural, like it had extra folds it didn't know what to do with. And when it turned its head slightly, the eye was all wrong. Too round, too bright, like a human eye catching the light. I convinced myself I was seeing things. Low resolution, bad angle, maybe even a trick of the light, but I kept the cameras up. The next night, it came back. This time, I got a full body shot. The skin around its shoulders was peeling like an old leather jacket. The face was the worst part. It had the shape of a mountain lion, but the edges didn't sit right, like it had been pulled too tight, and the mouth turned to the camera, and it smiled. Then it was gone. Vanished into the darkness. I knew in my heart whatever I'd just caught on film was the culprit, that creature, that was the one that took my hen. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the shotgun by my bed. Every light in the house was on. My closest neighbour is 6 miles away. I wasn't about to call the sheriff over a mountain lion with a weird face, but I didn't shut my eyes once. It was just wrong feeling. It was just weird. You're letting it get to you, Carrie, I exhaled. Acting just as bad as when you were drinking. Got yourself jumping at the shadows. There was no chance I was tricking myself into relaxing. My eyes were still open when the dawn came. The night after, the camera by my coop caught it standing on 2 legs.
Oh.
It was blurry, sure, but the shape was unmistakable. It had the hind legs of a big cat, but its torso was wrong. Too long, too thin. The skin had sloughed off in places, leaving exposed ribs and raw muscle. The face, it wasn't a cat's anymore. Does that make sense? It still had the skull of a cat, the ears, the fur, but the fur was sort of slipping back like a hood, and the muzzle had been twisted up somehow or bent down. The mouth gaping open in a way that no animal should. And the eyes, no doubt about it, human. I looked at the camera again, and then I watched as it took its hands and snapped the chicken wire with its bare hands. I ran out at dawn, yanked down every camera and dumped them in the shed. I figured if I ignored it, it would go away. Childish? Sure. But what else could I do? Go out there and face it. Just the thought had me shaking in my boots, so I told myself that I was seeing things, that I'd been awake for too long looking for something that wasn't there. This morning, I found the last remaining trail cam sitting on my front porch. I didn't put it there. I hadn't even looked at the footage yet. My hands shook as I clicked through the files. The final image was taken at 3:12 a.m. The creature was no longer walking through the woods. It was standing right in front of the camera. Too close. Its torn skin hanging in strips. Its mouth was open wide, its lips peeled back, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth. And its eyes, they were staring right into the lens. Into me. Then, in the last frame, it screamed! High, keening wail like metal tearing, like something forcing its way through flesh that was never meant to hold it. I haven't left the house since. I don't know what it wants, but I know one thing. It's watching me now. And hands that can snap wire can easily figure out how to open a flimsy wooden.
This is a cautionary tale to be extra careful in your home if you think it's haunted. So Jesse and his girlfriend move into this home. It's about 200 years old, and everybody says that it's haunted. They're only 16 years old at the time, but his parents had gotten them this house, and so they were living together in this house at 16 years old. He said that it felt a bit off when he first moved in, and that the previous owners had told him that suddenly the house became haunted after being fine for a long time. After about 4 months, this got so bad that the previous owners just had to move out. Now, this house was surrounded by forest, so there was bears, moose, wolves there, but Jesse loved this because he loved nature. He said that the neighbors were also really nice. Some of the neighbors were in like their mid-20s, and they would talk to them and they would tell them that the house used to be this really cute house, and it suddenly just turned into like this really dark place. It was loud too. Now, Jesse and his girlfriend did not believe in ghosts, and so the house was in good shape. It was large, it was cheap, and so they weren't about to not move in just because people were saying it was haunted. So they move in, and the first night that they're there, Jesse wakes up and he feels like he's being watched, and then he starts hearing this creak, 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 like these loud creaking footsteps, and then he starts hearing like breathing. Now Jesse's kind of just frozen because he's scared at this point. He's like, what the hell is this noise? What is going on right now? When suddenly he looks up, and the door that was closed prior to his bedroom is now open, and there is a shadow of a man standing in the doorway. So he decides that he's going to jump up and go walk over towards this thing. But as soon as he does, this thing starts running down the hallway, and he can hear it running down the hallway, and he is paralyzed in fear as soon as it starts running. The running faded, then stopped, and a loud bang shook the house. The next thing you know, he is on the ground, and it is daytime. And at first, he just thinks that this is a dream at first, until his girlfriend asked him, why did you come in my room last night and just pace around and breathe real heavy? And he was like, that wasn't me. I was not in your room. And apparently, whatever there was in her room, she said, hey, are you okay? Thinking that it was Jesse, and the thing just darted out of the room. Now, things only got worse from here. They would hear footsteps inside the walls. They would hear a man talking inside the wall. They would see shadows, cabinets, refrigerators, and doors would just be left open. Food would go missing. The kitchen would be a mess. Knives would go missing, and then they would find them in their room. Now, at this point, he is a believer in the paranormal because he is absolutely terrified. So he has a priest come bless the house. Only thing is that after the priest blessed the house, things did not get better. One day, Jesse is downstairs just chilling when suddenly he hears his dog barking and growling, and then he hears a big thud. So he runs upstairs to see what's going on, and his dog is just standing there barking ferociously at the wall. And he starts to hear it again, those footsteps in the wall. And then he notices that there's a piece of the wall, like a chunk of the wall is missing. So he moves it, and he notices that there's a door behind this. So he quietly opens it up. Suddenly the footsteps just stopped. There's this dim light, and then to his horror, he witnessed something that he did not expect. He noticed a mattress, a blanket, a pillow, some trash, and a bunch of half-eaten food, and the missing knives. And then he notices a man crouching in the corner with one of them. So Jesse just starts yelling at this dude, and he said that as soon as he started doing this, the man stood up, and he just started yelling, and he was acting deranged. There was something wrong with him. The man said, listen here, little boy, this is my goddamn house, and you will leave here right now. And then the dude just runs at him and is in the struggle. The guy drops the shiny object. Dog is helping in all of this. They start going at it. Then Jesse just notices, spur of the moment, that laying on the ground is one of those things, you hit nails with it. Yeah, so he picks that thing up and the guy lights out. The police were called, and what the police told them was absolutely terrifying. Basically, he was like not well, and he was planning on having them not be here anymore. He was planning on taking their... He kept mumbling about how they were invaders and the plague. Jesse was just thankful that him and his girlfriend were okay, but he wanted me to tell this story as a reminder that sometimes people are scarier than the paranormal, and to keep your guard up.
Happens when you invoke the spirit and you think it's a family member, but it's something else, something familiar. For privacy reasons, we're going to name this person H, and because this person warned me to not say the entity's name, I will say A. States that she met A when she was about 6 years old. She didn't think much of it because, of course, she thought it was her imaginary friend, and she kind of thought it was cool that when she took A to school, no one can see her, so she thought nothing of it. That was until she was in the 6th grade that A started affecting her physically. She said that one day she went over her mom's house to visit since her mom had gotten custody back of her siblings. When she went over there, she slept over the night, and her and her sister were sleeping on opposite ends of the couch. She woke up to the TV playing in the background, her in complete sleep paralysis, and A hovering over her, in her face breathing, and she can see it was A because of her black hair and her bloody gown. I don't know why, but A made sure that she can see her eye to eye. And just like that, she broke out of the sleep paralysis, and A was no longer hovering over her. That A used to tell her very horrible things, so much so that she started writing it down in school and drawing A and all the bad things that she would say to her. She said that after she did that in school, right after she got a high fever, and she felt like she could even go brain dead. And that's when COVID hit. H says that that's when she met JC. She met JC through an online course that she had to take a test in person. Never told JC anything about A until one day she opened up about her. In this conversation, H never described A to JC at all until he told her, wait, is that the girl that was following you around in school? And he described her to a T. H revealed to JC that she's actually a spirit that's been following her, and JC revealed to H that he's a medium. JC, trying to help H, he asked her, do you want me to communicate with A? She was all for it at the beginning until JC revealed to her that A was angry with her, and she backed out. H states that A kept haunting her and taunting her, showing her face to her and hovering too close. That she had turned to God for his help, and she gave her life to God. And then all of a sudden, A just disappeared, backed away, as if she was protected by God. That she started getting into tarot cards. Now, one day she was going through TikTok and she ran across a live. And in this live, there was a lady doing yes and no questions with rods and tarot cards. As mentioned, she drifted away from God during this time. Asking questions to the tarot reader regarding her grandmother. Now, the tarot reader is answering all her questions, and they're legit. It's like her grandmother's talking to her. Moment, H goes into her Snapchat and opens up the filter to see if anybody is around her, and something does appear in the screen. Now, did she share the screenshot? She did not. Still believing this is her grandmother, she decided to invoke the spirits on her own and try a method that I will not say here. That's when she realized that it was never her grandmother, it was A the whole time. Desperate, H gets back on the live and tells the reader what was going on. So the reader refers her to someone that she knows. She did tell her that this man works with demons. Being desperate, she did it. She told H that she would feel sick but yet relieved. And then he followed up by telling her, leave your window open so she can crawl out of your window. H does say that after he did the spell, she felt the release and the relief, and she did feel sick. However, when she crawled out her window, she said that she felt her trying to crawl back into the window. Again, H says to the man, is she trying to come back? And he said, yes, but my demons are holding her off and she cannot come back. She is banished to hell and she cannot come back to you. So she can sometimes feel A from time to time. However, she's not 100% sure she's completely gone, but she hasn't had any more experiences. What do you guys think that was? And I really hope that for H's sake, A never comes back.
The video that I'm going to show you is crazy, but like the explanation of it is insane. So this girl says that she has no idea how to explain what happened, but where she used to live, there was a really big old cemetery. The point is, around this time, she had just had a baby, and it was the middle of the night where she started to hear some really loud screams coming from that cemetery. When this happened, her husband's aunts were awake, and they were telling her that maybe it was just a dog, and her husband also agreed that it could be some animal. Now, she would tell them there's no way that this is a dog. I've heard this before and it doesn't sound like a dog to me. After this, they didn't hear that sound for like the next 3 days. On the 4th day, it was 3 in the morning and they heard the scream even louder this time. The crazy shit happened on this 4th day though, because as soon as they heard what she said sounds like somebody screaming and crying, all of the toys in her baby's bedroom started to turn on their own, which caused the baby to wake up and start crying. She obviously just got her baby, put him back to sleep, and she told her husband to take the batteries out of the baby's sex toy. The following day, another one of her husband's aunts ends up sending her a video of that night. So it turns out that the aunt's best friend is a police officer in that area, and they received a call from somebody else in that neighborhood who told them that they need to go to the cemetery because they believe that a dog was abandoned there. The cops did end up going, and this is the video that was captured of them trying to see if there was a dog or what is going on at the cemetery. Check it out.
Adelante. Se trata para conocimiento del Dios aquí 24-9. Es un edificio de tercer nivel, de 3 niveles. El tercer nivel, en total es completamente. Estoy trabajando evidentemente a un 23 por 65. A veces tenemos algún día, nos va a parecer un 25, mejor conocimiento. Y el 4. ¿4 4? Y el 4, pero no da correo. Es también pendiente para conseguir que esta isla no va completa. ¿Qué 4?
So, what do you guys think? Do you think that was a dog or was that something completely different? For me, at one point it sounded like a woman screaming and then it turned into like a guy screaming, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Do you want to hear a ghost story? The Gurdon lights, I think I said that right, correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, but they have been around since the 20th century and people to this day have claimed to see them. According to this legend, a railroad worker lost his life on these tracks. Was it by murder or was it by an accident? Nobody really knows. One version of the legend says that a railroad worker was in an accident where his head was severed. While his co-workers searched for hours looking for his head, it was never found. And now the railroad worker is spending eternity walking around the railroad looking for his head. And that's why you will often see these bobbing lights along this railroad track. Another version of the story says that he was actually murdered on these tracks, and now he is wandering these tracks trying to prevent people from being in the same accident that he was in. Many people have claimed to see these lights and walked up to them, but then the light will bob away as if walking in the other direction. All people who have claimed to see these lights say that it looks like a lantern, like someone is walking with a lantern, because it'll kind of bob in that kind of way. But either way, the people who claim that this legend is real believe that there is a spirit of a railroad worker who is walking along the tracks with a lantern, either looking for his own head or trying to prevent anyone else from being injured. There are skeptics out there that believe that this is actually not a spirit, but more likely automobile lights that are coming down the highway that is really close to this railroad track. Something with the atmosphere is like making the light reflect. Other explanations have said that it might be methane emissions that ignite naturally in the air. Now, this does happen. Methane gas can glow, but it doesn't move with intelligence, and everyone who has seen these lights says that this light does move. It's intelligent, like it's walking in a specific direction. While many have tried to explain these lights away, others fully believe that there is a spirit on these tracks. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think any of it's real, or is it all just a legend? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Follow for more spooky things.
Who would win in a fight between Bigfoot and a Wendigo? Now, you got Bigfoot from Washington State. You got the Wendigo from Minnesota, right? Bigfoot said to be between 8 to 9 foot. He is fast, he is strong, sometimes climbs trees. He's very elusive. Some people even say he has this supernatural ability to transport himself through portals. Versus a Wendigo who essentially is this evil being that's 15 foot tall, that is emancipated or starving. He is skinny, he is tall, he has very sharp teeth, very sharp claws, and he is known as this supernatural being that can sometimes mimic people's voices, that can shapeshift. He is said to be super, super fast and very smart. Now, hypothetically, if they ever got into a battle, I think Bigfoot is stronger. I think physically, Bigfoot could take this thing. But I think that the Wendigo is too fast for Bigfoot to catch. And I think he, rather than get close to Bigfoot, he would probably lure him off a cliff or something. Or he would trick him into essentially losing the battle. Because One, he's very intelligent, and two, he's very fast. But I think if we're talking in terms of physicality and Bigfoot could catch a Wendigo, it would probably destroy it. I'm curious to hear what you think, and what other cryptids do you think would be a good battle? Who do you think would win in a fight between, let's say, the Loch Ness Monster and the Jersey Devil, or something similar?
There was this girl who went to Juilliard. She was a violinist, and she started failing her classes and couldn't get any gigs. So she started to say, to her friends, I would do anything to be famous and get gigs. But she didn't realize who was listening. It wasn't just her friends, but also the devil. Now, she goes to bed one night and she has this really vivid dream. There's this beautiful man. He comes in her room and he's naked. And he says, I will give you fame and fortune. All you have to do is give me your soul. And she goes, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And so all of a sudden this contract appears right before her. And he says, let me see your hand. And he cuts her finger and says, sign this contract with your blood. So she signs the contract. And all of a sudden the contract, he picks it up, puts it in his hand, and it turns to flames and then falls on the floor as a bunch of ashes. So she wakes up and she's, a little bothered by the dream, but thinks it's just a dream, until she looks at her finger. There's a cut. And on the floor is a pile of ashes. So fast forward several years, she becomes famous and starts traveling all over the world and lands all these huge gigs. But then she starts getting involved in partying and she contracts AIDS. Now, she ends up to the point where she's on her last journey of life, and she's in the hospital, and she's talking to her mother, who's Filipino, and she tells her this story about the dream she had. And instantly her mother says, we need to talk to a priest. We need to call a priest. So she calls up a priest and talks to the priest, and he says, I will come there right away and speak with your daughter. So the priest comes, and he comes in the hospital room, and he says, you made a blood pact with the devil. And in order to break that, you have to make a blood pact with God. So you need to sign this creed with your blood. And the doctor overhears this, is like, no, she can't do that. She has AIDS. And he goes, she has to do this. You can leave the room, but she has to do this. So he, cuts her finger and has her sign the creed. And instantly she flatlines. And the doctor comes running in and, he's angry with the priest. The mother's angry. And about 15 minutes had passed. And she gets up out of the bed. And she's fine. They run a bunch of tests. She has no AIDS, no HIV. She's completely clean. And she goes on to live a normal life.
I am getting so tired and exhausted already with what has been happening these last couple weeks. I haven't been able to get more than 4 hours of sleep in a night because of the running down the hall, the walking up the stairs. The dog, you hear it too, huh? Where is it? Tell Daddy where it is. Show Daddy. Where is it? Where is it? Show Daddy. She's been on high alert too. She has not left my side, which isn't really anything unusual, but even more than normal. It's like she's been what the fuck? What's that? That's the other thing. I've been hearing like this scraping or scratching like within I heard it last night when I was laying in bed, and it literally sounded like it was like right next to me. And I'm like looking at the wall and there's nothing there. I don't. If anybody can maybe help with some answers, things I can do, like I'm not trying to make contact with whatever this is. I just want it to stop. I just kind of want to be able to be at peace again and relax and be able to have a full night's sleep and the dog not be like she is just keeping eyes on me. You can see her. She's a good girl. I'm not sure where that was or what that was.
Sometimes the animals are protective, sometimes the animals are defensive, and sometimes the animals are just scared. This animal is scared and unsure. And that's coming from the fact that the parents are unsure. I'm not saying that in a judging way. I'm just stating what I'm feeling. The being is, if you're looking at his dog, it's to the right, which I think is a front door. Like for me, when he's standing with the camera facing the dog, I felt it to my right when I'm looking at the dog. And I think that was the front door. And it does feel female because I felt her by the front door next to the dog, and she's like, she's scaring the dog and intimidating the dog. And because the parents aren't sure what's happening and how to deal with what's happening, everyone's sort of in this insecure, sort of chaotic space, understandably. And so what we want to be able to do is get the parents back in control of the space, and then their dog will feel secure right away. So let's see who's there. Blonde, tall woman, taller. She's probably about the same height-ish as the gentleman posting this. Curly-ish hair. Feels like she died of a drug overdose. She died alone. She was alone the bulk of her life. She died recently. Feels very confident in the home, very familiar with the home. That tells me she's got to have some connection to this home. She didn't pass that long ago. If I was to take a shot at it, it feels like she had to have been the person that owned the home before this, or lived there, or knew someone that lived there, or, do you know what I mean? Somehow was connected to this home, because she feels connected to the home. She feels a connection to the home. I want to respect the boundaries of the person that posted this, so I am in the home, but I'm not like invasively in the home because they haven't asked me to enter it. So I can feel her. I think with their permission, I could remove her. I am not going to move any deeper into the home and do any of that work without permission. So yeah, what I am going to do is set up a barrier around the dog. And then we need to I will tag him. And if others, if more of you guys want to tag him also to make sure he gets the message, then I can help him. I'm going to set up a boundary around the dog. And the reason why I'm not setting anything up again around the parents is they haven't asked, and I don't know if they want it or don't want it, so I'm not going to do that. But the dog is clearly feeling very vulnerable, very scared. She's not demonic. She's not a poltergeist. She's just erratic, unsettled. And it's feeling sort of like an extension of when she was in body. Very uncomfortable, unsure about her surroundings, doesn't know really where she's at and why. angry, rebellious. She'll push back a lot. And it probably won't be an easy removal, but she'll kick and scream, but it's not like she's demonic or anything like that. So it's just a matter of getting permission and we'll go in there.
Okay, let's do a little update from last night. A lot of people have been asking, so here goes. We did another live investigation from the loft last night, and a lot of you guys actually sent in screenshots. Now, what I find quite strange is you've all sent in the same thing. 7 of you emailed this in to me last night, claiming they could see a face on the back wall. So I'm going to blow the photo up right now and tell me what you can see. Also, there was 2 motion detections that went off on the camera last night. I'm going to insert that in a second. But be mindful, when we did the investigation on the night time, I left a few lights up there. As you can see in the first clip, none of the lights were on, but one of the lights was in fact triggered. Quite a few people said they missed a live last night. Is there a way they can watch it back? Yes, I am currently downloading it. I am then going to upload it to the other social media platform known as YT. Can't say that on here. So please jump across to here, give me a follow, and that will be live at some point tonight and you'll be able to watch it. I'm also quite happy in the future, any investigation or anything that we do live, I will also upload it to there in long form content.
You can't make this stuff up. Might have known the story of real life boogeyman.
I still can't believe that he tried to say that it was a demon in his neighbour's dog that made him do all of these crimes. David Falco was born on the 1st of June in 1953, making him a Gemini. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, to his mother Betty, who was a waitress. She had had an affair with a married man named Joseph Kleinman. When Betty became pregnant, Kleinman refused to leave his wife, wanted nothing to do with the child. Because Betty was still legally married to another man, Anthony Falco, her newborn son was then given Falco's surname on the birth certificate. But just days after this birth, Betty gave this baby up for adoption. He was taken in by Nathan and Pearl Berkowitz. They were a middle-class Jewish couple who lived in the Bronx, and they renamed him David Richard Berkowitz. At 7 years old, he was hit by a car and he suffered a head injury because of this, and a lot of people think that this affected his behaviour and his impulse control. Not long after this, his parents noticed that he started being aggressive and disruptive, often acting out violently, lashing out at little children. They got a lot of people involved. They called rabbis, psychologists. They wanted to try and find out what was going on with his little boy. At the age of 12, David started setting a lot of fires. When he was 13, his cruelty escalated to the torturing and killing of animals. He even poisoned his own mum's parakeet with cleaning fluid. In 1967, David's adoptive mother Pearl died from breast cancer. Her illness had been kept a secret from him for quite a while, so when she passed, he felt betrayed by his dad Nathan for hiding this from him. Grief turned into anger and his behaviour at school deteriorated even further. Nathan then went on to remarry in 1971, but David hated his new stepmother. He felt angry, he felt alienated at home, he just did not have a good time. That same year, at 18 years old, David graduated from high school and joined the US Army. He served as a marksman in South Korea and Kentucky, earning a reputation for being quiet but proficient with weapons. In 1974, he was honourably discharged and returned to New York, where he briefly attended the Bronx Community College before taking jobs as a security guard and a cab driver. Around this time, David tracked down his birth mother, Betty, and learned all of the truth about his adoption. He also met his half-sister, and for a little while they stayed in contact, but then the reunion just made him feel a lot of resentment, and that didn't work out. Then in December 1975, Berkowitz attacked a woman and a teenage girl on a bridge in Co-op City with a hunting knife. The woman managed to escape, and the girl, although she was seriously injured, she also managed to survive. In early 1976, David moved to Yonkers in New York and started a new job at the US Postal Service. His mental health, though, really continued to decline. He later claimed that during this period, a demonic entity named Sam began communicating to him through his neighbour's black Labrador, and the dog was telling him that he needed to kill people. On the night of the 29th of July in 1976, David committed his first murder. He approached a parked car in the Bronx where Donna Lauria and Jody Valenti were talking. He took out a weapon and opened fire. Donna was killed instantly. Jody survived with very serious injuries. She could only give the police a really vague description of him, so it wasn't that helpful for them trying to find out who it was. 3 months later, on the 23rd of October in 1976, David attacked another couple in their car. He fired 5 shots, leaving them both injured. One of them even required a metal plate to replace part of his skull. In November 1976, he shot 2 high school students who were just sat chatting. He went up to them pretending to ask for directions before opening fire. One of the victims survived but was left paralysed. Then on the 30th of January 1977, David struck again, killing Christine and injuring her fiancé John while they sat in a parked car. Because of the weapon that he used, police started connecting some dots and they started calling him the 44 caliber killer because they knew these murders were connected, but they didn't know who had done it. The NYPD then formed a 200-member task force to find this man. 2 months later, on the 8th of March 1977, he killed 19-year-old student Virginia as she returned home from one of her classes. On the 17th of April, he shot another couple in Queens, killing both of them. This time, though, the police found a handwritten letter at the scene, and this is where he introduced himself as the son of Sam, and he taunted the authorities basically in this letter and said that he was going to carry on doing this. The following month, a newspaper columnist received a second handwritten letter, also signed off again by son of Sam, and it referenced Donna, who was one of his earlier victims, and it said, "You can't forget about Donna. She was sweet, but Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he gets his fill of blood." This note was then sent in to the police, and excerpts were printed and put in the paper, and this paper flew off the shelves because everybody was terrified. Everybody wanted to read all that they could to find out what was going on. On the 26th of June in 1977, another couple sitting in the car who were discussing the son of Sam were shot by the son of Sam, but luckily they managed to survive. Then on the 31st of July, he went on to kill Stacy Moskowitz. She became his final victim in that year-long rampage. Witnesses were near the attack at this time, and they said that they saw a man acting suspiciously moments before the incident. One person mentioned that police were issuing parking tickets in the area that night, and investigators soon discovered that one of the tickets was issued to David Berkowitz. At the same time, the Yonkers police were actually already investigating Berkowitz for harassing one of his neighbours. Detectives connected these two cases and put surveillance outside his apartment building. On the night of the 10th of August 1977, officers watched as David approached his cream-coloured Ford Galaxy car. When he was inside the car, they approached him, and this is where they found maps of crime scenes, they found a weapon and a lot of ammunition. Berkowitz actually calmly said to the police, "Well, you got me." He confessed to being the son of Sam killer. He told the police that a demon named Sam spoke through his dog, told him to kill people. He also admitted to starting over 1,500 fires across New York City, and he kept details about all of these fires in a notebook. David was only 23 years old when he committed his first murder, and he was just 24 years old when he was arrested. In that 1 year, he committed so many horrific crimes. On the 8th of May in 1978, Berkowitz withdrew his insanity plea and pled guilty to 6 murders and multiple attempted murders. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive terms of 25 years to life. He remains in prison to this day and has been denied parole repeatedly. After his conviction, he claimed that he'd been part of a violent satanic cult that helped carry out the killings, but nobody was able to ever verify that this happened. He later went on to say, "People will never understand where I come from. No matter how I try to explain it, they won't understand what it was like to walk in darkness."
The injuries from her murder were so catastrophic that the investigators compared them to someone who had been hit by a car. Someone managed to inflict that brutality with their own bare hands. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Julie Jones. In her early life, Julie Margaret Jones was brought up in Abergele, Wales, where she lived with her parents and 3 siblings. At school, Julie was very popular, she had lots of friends, and she was really smart. She managed to leave school with a couple of O-levels under her belt. She was very sporty, she was an avid netball player, and she played for the school team where she was described as the star. She was very lively, energetic, she absolutely loved to put on a performance, singing and dancing. Julie was also very affectionate. Teresa would describe that if she was feeling a little bit down in the dumps and needed cheering up, Julie would sit on her knee, giving her the biggest cuddle ever, and told her mum how much she loved her. After her parents separated, 17-year-old Julie decided to move from Wales up to Bury in Manchester with her mother Teresa, who was working as a lollipop lady. To start off, everything was great, normal and happy. Julie would even go on to have 2 children. two sons who she named Dale and Josh. However, as Teresa described it, Julie's life began to spiral out of control. She would get in with the wrong crowd and she would end up moving to Ann Court in Manchester, which is a more central area. She had started abusing hard drugs, including heroin and so much more, and in order to fund this addiction, she had turned to sex work. On the evening of Friday the 26th of June 1998, 32-year-old Julie left her home in Ann Court ready to go out for a night of work. She would frequent the Whalley Range and Minsell Street area to meet her clients, to meet the men. That night she was seen getting in and out of several cars, going off and doing her work, then returning, then meeting another client. The last sighting of Julie was her getting into a car, and then she disappeared. When Julie didn't return back home when she was supposed to, her housemate reported her missing to the police. 6 days later, on the 3rd of July, a dog walker who was out and about near the old Smithfield Market area, which now is a part of the Northern Quarter, I'm pretty sure there are luxury apartments built there, but back then it was a very desolate part of the city. He would discover the body of Julie Jones. She was found completely naked and wrapped up in a carpet. The injuries that were inflicted on Julie were absolutely horrific and barbaric. The injuries were compared to someone who had been hit by a car or jumped off a tall building. Julie's autopsy would show that she had severe crushing wounds to her ribs and internal organs. All of her ribs were broken, and the internal injuries inflicted to her organs caused catastrophic bleeding. Some monster, had either been ferociously stamping on Julie or physically jumping up and down on her in order to inflict these injuries. During the investigation into her murder, the investigators became pretty confident that the site where Julie was found wasn't where she was murdered. She was murdered elsewhere, and then her body was dumped near the old Smithfield Market. Both her clothes and all of the jewellery that she had been wearing that night have never been recovered. At the time, a £10,000 reward was put out for information leading to an arrest, and off the back of this, they actually got several leads. 7 people in total were arrested, however, no charges were ever brought against them, and they were all released. Detectives spoke to over 300 people, however, none of these statements led them any closer to discovering who had murdered Julie, and with that, her case went cold. In 2018, so 20 years after her barbaric murder, Julie's case was finally being looked into again as a cold case. Thanks to all the advances in DNA technology, investigators were able to extract a DNA profile from some of their evidence, a profile that they believe might help them crack the case. I gather that it's already been put through the national database and that there were no matches on there, because surely that's the first thing that the investigators did, but no matches must have came up. All that the police need now is someone to come forward with information, with a name, give them someone to compare this DNA to. As of right now, the murder of Julie Jones is still unsolved. There is a £50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
Inside this sorority house, something so disturbing took place that none of the students would ever recover. It was an autumn morning in 2015 in the town of Westwood. And the area is absolutely gorgeous. It's the neighbourhood home to UCLA. And honestly, before all of this happened, everybody would talk about how safe it was. Andrea Del Vesco was a stunning 21-year-old student living in an apartment in the area. She was known as Andy to all her friends, and she studied psychology like me. Love that for her. And all of her friends just knew her as this friendly, super intelligent girl. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was in a sorority called the P Beta P sorority. Hopefully I'm saying that right. We don't have sororities in the UK. And one of her sorority sisters was a girl called Sarah. On the 21st of September, Sarah had a rude awakening. She was startled awake by this screaming noise and then the sound of a dog barking and barking. It was like this dog was going crazy. She was like, what is going on? It's not even 7 a.m. yet. Now she lived above Andy, so she immediately was like, I'm going to ring Andy and see if she knows what's going on. So she rang and rang and rang, and she never answered. So fair play to Sarah, she wasn't wasting any time. She immediately called the police. She just had this gut feeling that something awful had happened. So get ready to be infuriated, guys, because the police showed up, looked around, knocked on the door. They couldn't get an answer from Andy, so they just decided to leave. Bear in mind, this girl had heard screaming and a dog going crazy. So after they just buggered off, poor Sarah was left to try and work out what the hell was going on and what that noise was. So she peered down from her balcony to see if she could get any kind of better view of what had happened underneath her. And suddenly she saw smoke. Police had just left and now the apartment was on fire. And even more terrifyingly, she sees a guy leave Andy's apartment with a blanket over his head, trying to kind of conceal himself. Now, it's incredibly lucky that Sarah was looking out and watching all of this unfold, because she spotted Blanket Guy run and get into a red car. He drove off, and as he was driving away, she could just about make out there was some stickers in the back window. And this was the name of a fraternity. It was the Lambda Chi Alpha fraternity. Again, emergency services were called to the scene and firefighters battled this blaze. Horrifically, once the roaring flames turned to ash, they could clearly see the unmistakable shape of a body. Charred and now unrecognizable, but everybody knew this was Andy. And as if this wasn't bad enough, guys, her little dog was also found just hanging on to life, really badly burned and basically unable to breathe. The dog did get taken to an animal hospital, but they decided that the kindest thing would be to put the dog down. It was now a race against the clock to find out what evil frat guy had committed this murder. Now, no smoke was found in Andy's lungs at the autopsy, so it was very obvious to police that she was actually already dead prior to the fire starting, which made it clear that the fire was started to try and conceal evidence. But the killer wasn't as clever as he thought. Turns out he'd stolen laptops and speakers from an apartment across the road that very same night. And in order to use the speakers, he had to go on a website and register under his name. And this guy literally put in his details into the website. So an employee from the speaker company phoned police I think we've got your guy. It was 22-year-old Alberto Medina. And he was obviously pretty much backed into a corner with this evidence. He admitted to stealing the items, and lo and behold, he had a red car just like the one Sarah had seen. He was also covered in scratch marks, which made it very clear to everybody that poor Andy had fought for her life. And the nail in the coffin for this guy was that her blood was found in his vehicle. It turns out that he had stabbed this poor girl 19 times. Now, he tried to pin the murder on his friend, Eric Marquez, but police said the evidence told a different story. Eric was given 2 years and 8 months for aiding and abetting the burglary, and Alberto was given life in prison without parole. He never admitted what his motive was, and basically denied all memory of the killing, and I wonder if we will ever truly find out.